What's going on, everybody? Wanted to talk a little bit more about Jonathan Taylor, who's a running back for the Indianapolis Colts. And a couple weeks ago, he suffered a thumb injury where he tore a ligament on the inside of his thumb. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, right? Like, who cares? It's just a thumb. He's a running back. He can play through it. No big deal. But let's take a deep dive a little bit more into what the UCL ligament does within your thumb and why somebody like Jonathan Taylor would elect to undergo surgery right in the middle of the season for this. So the particular ligament that we're talking about with Jonathan Taylor's thumb is called the ulnar collateral ligament, which, as this picture shows, sits on the inside part of the web space of your thumb and stops your thumb from getting pulled back to the inside part of your wrist or towards your radius that's on the same side of your thumb. Now, this can occur if, for example, you're running with the ball and somebody accidentally grabs your thumb and it gets pulled backwards. Sometimes somebody will go up to grab a jersey for a tackle, or sometimes coming up for a block like in football, and somebody's thumb just gets caught and then gets pulled back that way. Another name for this particular injury is sometimes referred to as skier's thumb, because when people are holding onto the ski poles, what can happen is they can hit a bump or they can have a fall, and as their pole gets stuck in the ground while they're holding onto it, their thumb gets stretched out that way, and then that can tear or sprain that particular UCL or ulnar collateral ligament of the thumb. So in addition to being pretty painful, this is one of those injuries that you don't realize how much you actually use something until you get hurt. So athletes that end up suffering a UCL thumb injury, they'll say a lot of times that they're like, man, I didn't realize how much I actually use my thumb for gripping, holding on to things, just moving my hand around. And, you know, our thumb is really what separates us from the apes, right? Having the ability to maneuver it. So really important function for everyday life and sports. Now that we talked a little bit more about what the UCL is, where it's located, how it gets injured, and what its function is, it still begs the question of, well, why would a professional running back like Jonathan Taylor elect to undergo surgery for this particular ligament right in the middle of the season? And that has to do with the ability to grip the ball. So as you can see from this particular picture, when a running back carries the ball, this is true for all ball carrying sports, is that your grip is not just affected by your first four fingers. Your thumb plays a very important role in the ability to hold on to the ball. He's a professional athlete. People are trying to grab that ball. He's taking some hard knocks. It's going to be really important that his grip strength around that ball while he's carrying it is of utmost importance. Also, he does catch the ball from time to time. There is some implication for receivers to be able to grab the ball out of the air, get a firm grip on it by wrapping their thumb around. So if that UCL ligament around the inside part of his thumb is torn completely and it's affecting his ability to grip the ball, that's going to be a big problem for a professional athlete like Jonathan Taylor. Now, although the thumb can be minimized a lot because people are just like, oh, it's just a small part of your thumb, it's just a small little ligament, it should be a really quick repair on there and you should bounce back. And yes, he will probably bounce back in a few weeks, right? But we need to make sure that we respect, one, the healing process, and the thing that we also need to respect is the amount of musculature that crosses around the thumb. We talked in the last slide about how it's really important to grip the ball with your thumb, and a lot of our activities of daily living revolve around grip. And so look at all the different muscles that cross the thumb. These are going to be different parts of his thumb and his wrist that we're going to need to make sure are functioning at their utmost capacity so that when he gets out onto the field, he doesn't have to worry about any weakness. He also doesn't have to worry about any pain, and that he can just worry about running and catching and performing the duties that he needs to as a professional running back. Now, once he undergoes surgery and that ligament is healed and he's regaining some of his strength and some of that range of motion around his hand, his wrist, and around that thumb as well, he'll likely wear a small brace while he's playing just to give that thumb a little bit of some extra support and make sure that that ligament doesn't get stressed anymore. And sometimes this is referred to as a thumb spica splint, and this can also be worn by people who haven't completely torn the ligament. So in Jonathan Taylor's case, he completely ruptured or tore the ligament completely through, like tearing it in half. For some people, we get some athletes who they will just sprain that ligament where they'll partially tear it, they'll overstretch it kind of like a rubber band, and then their body will lay down a little bit of scar tissue and then eventually scab over and heal that ligament. But this thumb spica splint can be very useful for people that are suffering from a UCL injury and they go back to contact collision sports, because it will help to minimize the subsequent micro trauma that could occur through their thumb.